नमस्कार दोस्तों, एसएससी ट्रिक वॉल्ट के इस नए विश्लेषण में आपका बहुत-बहुत स्वागत है।
The Indian Parliament functions as a highly regulated dual-engine machine, engineered specifically to manufacture legislation and enforce executive accountability. This machine operates within a massive physical framework. The strict parameters of this system are defined right at the beginning of the Constitution, in Article 79. Article 79 mandates Parliament consists of three inseparable components: the President, the Upper House, and the Lower House. We will examine the structural hardware of the houses, then unpack the procedural software governing their daily runtime. Mastering this exact structural model is the only way to comprehend how the legislative branch actually restrains the immense power of the state. Let's start inside the legislative chamber itself to establish the baseline of our dual-house hardware. This matrix lays out the Rajya Sabha, established under Article 80. As the upper house, its purpose is to represent the individual states at the federal level. Because it represents the permanent states, the core rule of the Rajya Sabha is permanence. It can never be dissolved. To maintain stability, members must meet a minimum age requirement of 30 years and serve a lengthy 6-year tenure. But to keep the body functioning without abrupt overhauls, there is a staggered stability mechanism in place. Exactly 1/3 of the Rajya Sabha members retire every 2 years, ensuring a continuous, unbroken session. The Constitution caps the maximum capacity of this House at 250 seats, though the current operating capacity is set at 245. Of those 245 seats, 225 are elected from states, 8 from union territories, and 12 are nominated by the President. Parallel to this is the Lok Sabha, defined by Article 81. This is the lower house, representing the direct public. Unlike the permanent upper house, the Lok Sabha relies directly on voters' mandate. Because of this, it is vulnerable to complete dissolution. Here, member constraints shift for broader participation, a lower minimum age of 25, and shorter tenure of 5 years. Historically, the Lok Sabha held up to 552 members. After the 104th Amendment removed 2 Anglo-Indian seats, maximum capacity now stands at 550. Currently, the House operates on 543 elected seats, 524 from states, and 19 from union territories. Within this matrix, strict demographic reservations apply. Exactly 131 seats are reserved, 84 for scheduled castes, and 47 for scheduled tribes. This specific structural matrix, balancing demographic proportionality on one side and permanent state representation on the other, is the required foundation. Without this hardware in place, daily legislative action cannot occur. With the constitutional hardware established, we can examine the procedural software that dictates how Parliament actually runs hour by hour. This timeline displays the daily operational schedule driven by Article 118, which grants Parliament the authority to create its own rules of procedure. The daily runtime kicks off at 11 a.m. and generally concludes at 6 p.m. The very first block, from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m., is question hour. This is a 60-minute window reserved for pre-vetted executive accountability. Members cannot simply interrogate a minister on a whim. There is a rigid bureaucratic filter requiring 10 days advance notice. These submissions are routed through the Secretary General to ensure they meet technical rules. Approved questions fall into precise categories. The first is starred questions, color-coded green, which demand a live oral answer from the minister on the floor. To prevent a single member from stalling the session, there are strict limits. The Lok Sabha allows a maximum of 20 starred questions per day, while the Rajya Sabha caps them at 15. The strategic advantage of a starred question is engagement. Because the answer is delivered verbally, the inquiring member is permitted to ask up to 2 unscripted supplementary questions to follow up. Next are unstarred questions, color-coded white. These require only a written response from the ministry. Because answers are written, a higher volume is permitted, up to 230 per day in the Lok Sabha. Critically, the inquiring member is not allowed supplementary questions. There are two smaller categories as well. Pink short-notice questions cover urgent matters that require less than the standard 10-day warning, and yellow private member questions are addressed to representatives who are not serving as government ministers. This color-coded, highly structured categorization forces the executive branch to systematically prepare data and defend its policies on the public record every single morning. When the clock ticks to noon, the procedural environment shifts entirely. This 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. block is called 0 hour. It is a completely indigenous Indian parliamentary innovation that was instituted in 1962. It sits in direct contrast to question hour. During 0 hour, absolutely no prior 10-day notice is required. The intended function of this block is to provide an unvetted environment dedicated strictly to raising contemporary issues of immediate public importance. Despite its unscripted nature, structural limits apply. Interventions are capped at 20 questions per session. Note the distinct inversion rule. In the Rajya Sabha, the schedule is flipped. 0 hour occurs first at 11 a.m., followed by question hour at noon. 0 hour acts as a democratic pressure valve. It allows urgent public grievances to immediately bypass the slow 10-day bureaucratic filter and land straight on the floor. After a midday break, the timeline resumes at 2 p.m., initiating the formal legislative intervention phase. This block, running from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., is dedicated strictly to formal parliamentary proposals and resolutions, often referred to as motions. To prevent constant stalling of legislative work, there is a core safeguard. Initiating any major motion requires a ratification threshold of exactly 50 members backing the request. Once that lock is broken, the opposition can deploy an adjournment motion. With the Speaker's consent, this immediately halts all ongoing work to discuss an urgent issue. Once accepted, rules mandate a mammal of 2.5 hours for that discussion. Another tool is calling attention motion, specifically designed to force the government to address a rapidly escalating contemporary crisis. This is utilized when public unrest or violence demands immediate parliamentary scrutiny, and the government cannot be allowed to ignore the issue. If a member feels a minister is withholding information, providing misleading data, or giving unsatisfactory answers, they can file a targeted privilege motion directly against that individual minister. But the ultimate parliamentary weapon is the no-confidence motion, an existential threat to the entire executive branch. This motion is exclusive to the Lok Sabha and also requires that 50-member backing. Introducing this motion forces a strict 10-day discussion window. Within that time frame, the ruling government must prove by vote that it still holds a 272-seat majority. Failing this procedural test has immediate consequences. In 1999, Atal Bihari Vajpayee's government fell by exactly 1 vote during a no-confidence motion. Morarji Desai faced a similar crisis in 1978, failing to secure the required majority and losing the government entirely. These post-lunch motions serve as formalized structural weapons of the opposition, capable of escalating from simple data queries to total government dissolution. When you pull back and look at the entire system map, the true nature of Parliament becomes clear. The Indian Parliament operates as a precise, unrelenting algorithm of accountability. Its structural design, laid out in Articles 79 through 81, provides a stable matrix. It locks in permanent state representation while remaining tethered to the shifting mandate of the public. Meanwhile, the procedural rules governed by Article 118 ensure that the executive branch cannot act in a vacuum. It forces continuous, timed interrogation of their policies. Whether it is through a routine written question on a Tuesday morning or a fatal no-confidence motion that brings down a prime minister, every mechanism in this system exists for a single purpose: It forces the state to prove it still holds the mandate to govern, day in and day out.